Hi guys. In this video, we will be discussing extensively about lists in Python. Let's first take a look at how we would be initializing lists in Python. There are multiple ways of initializing it. I will walk you through, I will walk you through one by one. Yeah. So let's say that I want to define an empty list. Basically, I will be defining it something like this, and then I can basically print this particular list, and it's a common naming convention to use a plural format for lists because there will be an assumption that it is going to have more than one item in general. You can also validate the type of list using the type, and then let's type the bike here. And as you can see, it basically initialized a list, an empty list, and it also has a type or a data type of list in Python. Now, if you want to define something with a predefined value, so within the square brackets, you would basically be, specifying the items that you want to include in the list using a comma separated values as shown here. So now if I print that particular list, then what happens is it's gonna again print all that items that you see above. Now, this is one way of printing the list. Now, if at all I want to define, a list out of this first, let's say only the string characters, then that is also totally possible. So imagine that I want to make a list out of Harley Davidson, then it sort of prints every single character of from that word, into a comma separated values. So if at all you include a space for whatever reason, then even that space also will be considered as a list item, as you can see here, and that would also get printed here. Now, if you want to, let's say, print a number using a list, then what it would how you should do is like you should call a list, and inside that you should pass basically tuple as in a form of a tuple. The numbers is in a comma separated values, and as you can see here, it basically prints the numbers in a comma separated values. Now, what we have covered is we have basically covered three different mechanisms. Just to elaborate, an initialize a square bracket based notation where we specify how we can define the list using an initial empty list or a comma separated values. Also, we have also explained how we can use the list constructor to define a list of items and using maybe a word or numbers. Now let's also look at list comprehension. Now list comprehension is something that I'll also cover in later part of the video. But just to tell you guys that this is also another way of initializing a list. So all that you have to do is like it's like calling a loop or something that is within that particular list itself. And I can basically use a range function. And in that range function, I can specify, let's say, what is the starting point and what is the ending point. So just to explain you guys, range function takes whatever the start, stop, and the step as well. So what I imply by that is like start will be the starting point, so the number will start from 1, and ending will be if you give 11, then that particular list item set of list items would end before 11. So just to show you guys, if I print here, as you can see, it starts from 1 but ends before 11. So if I want to, print only even numbers, let's say, and I wanna, let's say, start with 2 only for that matter, then what I can do is I can simply create a list like this, and also it is gonna print me a list of items, only for even numbers. Likewise, it could also be quite useful to create. There are various ways in which we can basically utilize range functions to create lists. But this is something what we call as dynamic lists. If you want to dynamically, in our programming language, in our programming scripting or something, if you want to create a list dynamically, then these are the different ways in which we would be able to create a list. Now that we have created this and we have this bikes that is created for us already, let's go back and understand how we can reference a list item one by one. So if I have to access the first item in the list, please be informed that a list index starts at position 0. So you might be wondering, okay, this is like 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 items in this particular list. So for whatever reason, if you just specify as bikes of 1, then what happens is it's going to print BMV. So it is always, from list point of view, it is always going to print. I start with from an index of 0. So if at all you're planning to access that particular list item, then it is always best to the first item would always start with index of 0. Likewise, you can basically use different indexes to get that particular list item. Now, if I want to convert this into an uppercase, it is also quite possible that I can do that. For example, if I want to convert that Yamaha into an uppercase, then I can simply use this function to convert that into an uppercase. So basically, you can do direct manipulations using index reference on that particular list item. If you want to use lower, then that's totally possible. If you want to use title based thing, then that is also possible. So there are multiple ways in which you would be able to, access those items. Now, one other way, if for example, imagine that there is a scenario that is given to you, and it says that you want to make a filtered list of items, and using that filtered list, you want to basically take only the items, the second and the third item. Now, how would you do it? So that's where slicing comes into picture. So let's say if I want to print only BMW and Yamaha, then what I could do is I can use bikes and then use the square brackets. But here is the best part. So you have to specify from where you want to print it and where you want to end it. So as soon as I indicate that here. So what happens is, oh yeah, because it's like a range function, so you need to give like what before which number you want to end it. So as soon as I give that here, it is gonna print those two, but those two items. So if you want to print the first three items, then you don't need to even specify a start index, but you should ensure that you put that particular colon there. And then as you can see here, it sort of prints the first three items in the list. Now there is also another beauty. So what I imply by that is like if I say I want to print all the items, but in the steps of two. So list also supports from steps of two. For example, I want to start from 0 and then go all the way till fifth item. Then that is also like for example 0 and 1 is excluded. Second item is Yamaha, Bajaj is excluded, and the fourth item is Honda. So that's how it sort of prints. So even that is sort of possible as well with the reference of slicing. So this is what we called as list items. Slicing in a list. So now imagine that I want to create a filtered bike. Let's say bikes underscore filtered, then what I could do is simply specify bikes, and then I wanna specify, let's say I wanna start from 2 and then end with only just wanna print from 1, 2, and 3 till BMW, Yamaha, and BMW, Yamaha, and Bajaj. Then what I can do is I can simply initialize a list something like this, and this bikes filtered is gonna print me only with this particular list items, which is BMW, Yamaha, and Bajaj. So this is one way of things. Now, for whatever reason, if you would like to, get that particular length of a list, uh, so there are multiple ways to achieve it. So for what I imply by that is like, imagine that I create an sum is equal to or total items in list. Total items is equal to 0. Now I could do for I in bikes, I can specify total underscore items plus equal to 1. Now if I do that and say print total underscore items, you can see that it is printing the total number of items in the list, which is like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, this is a very complex way of printing that total items. Instead of that, what Python offers is a very simple function called length of list. So you can simply use len. and then you can specify bikes, and then what it simply prints is gives you the length of the list items. So this is how you would be able to, access and reference a particular list item. Also, if you would like to, let's say from Harley Davidson, I want to update it to some other bike name. As you guys know that we can reference that using, let's say, bikes of zero, it's going to give me Harley Davidson. Now you can simply initialize that value with, let's say, a new bike, for example, bike brand. So if I do that, so what it does is like just before this modification, if I print bikes, it's gonna print with Harley Davidson. But as soon as I update that, and then if I print it, you can see that it sort of overwrote, or it has overwritten that particular value to new bike brand. So you can mutate a list. So this is what list, when I said mutable, it's nothing but you can choose to update the list items using this particular reference method. So, which we will also be, covering in this modifying how we can perform different operations on list. So we'll get on with that. So the first way would be is like was what I was just showing you, which is like mutating a list. So we had a bikes list. So I will take that here again, and then if I want to update bikes of zero with something, and then I print bikes, then it's going to print me with that particular something value. So that's your first mechanism with which you can update that particular list. You can also do another way, which is using slicing. So let's say 0 to 2. If I do that, as you can see here, it's sort of explicit, it sort of splitted that with those particular values. So initially we initialized with only BMB and then Yamaha, but here as soon as you gave it as a character, it sort of printed it with two comma separated values, because that's what we saw that earlier. Now if I just give it with let's say appending a list, like say I have this particular set of bikes. Now if I have this particular bikes, and then I want to append one more bike brand to that, then what I can do is like I can simply use append basically appends to the end of that particular list. So basically it comes after this Honda. So if I want to do that, then what happens is let's say I want to append a bike named Tata, just giving an example. And then if I print the bikes, it again modifies that particular list. So if I give bikes, then as you can see here, it sort of appended it to the end of that particular list. So this is another way. So append is mostly used in creating sort of dynamic lists. To explain you guys what I imply is I have to go back to the for loop. So let's say I have a list called new underscore list is equal to empty, and I basically want to copy this particular list to this new this bikes list to this new list. So let's say I define that bike list again here, and then I wanna for item in bikes, or for bike in bikes I will do what would happen is I can say like new underscore list dot append bike simply. Now what it does is like it would basically create append all these items onto that new list, and then as you can see here, all those that were in the bikes is also now sort of available in new list as well. So if I give bikes again here, you can see there are two different lists that are there. Now list also allows you to hold another list. So what I imply by that is like let's say I wanna append this particular new list to bikes, then what I could do is I can simply use append here, and then I can specify the new list. And if I look at print bikes, you can see that again a list of list is included here. Now if you want to reference this particular list, then it's quite straightforward. So for example, let's say I want to refer that bikes, right? So if I want to refer bikes 0, it's going to give me Harley Davidson. But if you see, come to the position 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So let's say I want to access 5. It's going to give me that complete list. Now, if I say position again, it starts from index 0, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if I just give 0 there, it's going to play, it's going to print me only with that. So now I can also do, let's say 3, and it's going to print me budget. So this is another way. If there are like a list within a list, this is how you would sort of access that. And with this way, you will also be able to append multiple lists inside another list as well. So append basically sort of creates a list, a dynamic list, like as you can see here. Now let's take a look at insert statement. Now, if I want to insert an item into the list, then what happens is, let me take this bike list, and then I want to insert an item, let's say at index of 1. So what I can do is like bikes dot insert, and you can see that what is it just specifies basically what is it that I want to which is which position that I need to insert, and what is the object that I need to pass. So if I say the position as 1 and I want to insert something called the starter, then if I print bikes now, data should come before BMV. That's what you would see. So it got successfully inserted at position 1. Now, if I go back here just to show you guys, let's see how we can copy a list of items. So I have a list of items called bike, and I want to copy, I want to make that new list. Basically, you saw that we were creating new list by iterating, right? And then it sort of appended every item one by one. We don't need to do that. Instead of that, you can use an item called, you can use a copy function. And what it does is like new item, new list is equal to bikes dot copy. So basically, it just copies that list. And if I print that new list, let's say, you can see that a copy of bikes has been created here. So it sort of simplifies the way in which you can create it. Now, if I update new list of 0 with Tata, then what happens is if I just print the new list again, you basically it sort of modifies that particular existing list. But if you take a look at the, it's not the existing, the new list, but if you take a look at the existing list, it still remains as it is. So that's the beauty of it. Copy would allow you to preserve the originality, but do some sort of manipulations on the new list that you have copied that items into. Now let's take a look at slicing. Slicing is also another way. So instead of using copy, so imagine that I have bikes, and then I want to create a new bikes list. I can simply say bikes, and then I can simply use this colon alone. And if I print bikes, sorry, new bikes, then it is similar to that of copy. So slicing is another way with which you will be able to create a copy of that list. So now with slicing, you can also do a reverse copying. So if you do it this way, as you can see, Honda is the first item, and then it's basically reverse like Honda, Bajaj, Yamaha, BMW, and Harley Davidson. So in that fashion, also you would be able to basically copy that list. So slicing is a very powerful mechanism in list manipulations. I just wanted to show you guys a flavor on that. Yeah. Now, how we can extend a list from one list on to another is, so basically, so I have a new bikes list, right? And I want to extend. So just to show you guys, if I print bikes, you can see this one, and then if I print new bikes, you would see that sort of reversed. Now, if I say bikes dot extend, and then I specify new bikes, and then I print the bikes again. Then if you see here, it's sort of extended, which means that instead of adding it as an a complete list, it sort of concatenated these items as well onto this bikes list. Now there is also another mechanism as I've shown in the example here. So you can also do something like bikes here, and then let's say new bikes. I want to define something like this, and then I say bikes plus is equal to new bikes, and then I say let me print bikes. So it basically did a similar operation to that of extend function. It basically included all the items from this particular new bikes onto this. That's why, and it's a reversed list, and that's why you see that Honda coming again, Honda Bajaj in the reversed fashion. So let's take a look at removing an items from the list, which is first we will discuss with delete method or also pop and all those functions we will go through one by one. So if I look at delete, let's say I want to delete the first item of um, bikes, then what I would do is like, oh, yeah, I just specify that and then specify 0 here. And then if I print the bikes, you can see that Harley Davidson is gone now. So that's the beauty of delete. Now, if you try to, the one disadvantage, or it's not like a disadvantage, but one thing that a delete item does not return is which item it got deleted. So that's a slight drawback with respect to delete, which is what is sort of, mitigated using uh, pop. Now, if I want to completely clean up that list, I could do so by simply specifying this. So what I imply by that is like imagine that I print bikes before this delete execution. Then it first printed the bikes list. It performed the complete operation on bikes, and then it sort of cleaned up that list and reinitialized it to empty. So that's another way of deleting complete set of items from that particular list. Now let's take a look at, you can also choose to give, from which, in the index to which index you can, do the deletion. If you guys want to see that, then I can do that as well. So let's say I want to delete from bikes of 1 to, let's say, and then print bikes. Then you see the first item is retained because it's at index 0. BMW is removed. Yamaha is removed. But whatever that comes ends before this number, which is 2. So it deletes from 1 and 2. And therefore, that's why Bajaj and Honda is sort of kept as it is. Now let's move on to pop. So pop by default, if you do not give anything, then what it does is like, let's say print bikes dot pop. And then what I will also do is I'll print bikes here. So now if you see there, it said that it popped Honda, but also it modifies the current list. So what delete does is like it modifies the current list, but does not return any value. But bikes dot, the pop method also not only modifies or mutates the current list, but also returns you the value. So if at all you want to print a deleted item, then it's quite possible. It's easy for you to use that particular pop function in order for you to identify and print that particular uh, delete item. So if you want to target a particular index location, then that is also possible. So let's say I want to use let's do print and then bikes dot pop, and I like to pop, let's say, Yamaha out from the 0, 1 and 2, right? So and if I print bikes now, you can see Yamaha got popped, and then only the remaining list items are sort of printed. So with pop, not only by default it deletes the last item from the list, but if you do specify an index, then it deletes that particular item in that particular position. So that's the beauty of pop method. Now, if you do not know an index by any chance, and you just know the value of that particular item in the list, then what you can do is you can use a remove method. So bikes dot remove, and then let's say I want to remove BMW and bikes. So similar to that of delete method, remove does not return any item, or does not have anything defined as a return function, or return that does not return anything as part of that function, and therefore you see that none. But it does modify that particular existing list, and therefore you see that new list getting printed with BMV removed. So that's with respect to the remove function. Now with remove. So let's say if there are two BMV items, right? So let's say I wanna create BMV twice, yeah, and then let me remove this print statement because it's not going to make any sense. Now, and then I put a comma value here. Now you might be wondering that it might remove two BMV items, right? But it is not. It is gonna remove only the first occurrence of the BMW or BMW. So that's the something that you have to be conscious about when, especially when you're using a remove statement and specifying a value. You might need to use a for loop in order to iterate on that particular list and then sort of remove if there are more than one occurrences of that particular item in the list. Yeah, so please be mindful of it. Now let's move on to clear. So similar to that of delete with specifying everything like this, clear is also going to achieve the same thing. So if I say bike dot clear, and then if I print bikes, sorry, I have to specify bikes here. So, and then I first let me print the bikes just to show you guys what it has. It sort of clears that all list of items and then just returns an empty list. So that's another way of cleaning up the list if you want to set it back to zero. Now, similar to that of slicing, where I was showing you how we can reverse the list, you also have by default a function that you can use is reverse. Now, if I use that function, then obviously it initializes, and then let's say bikes dot reverse, and then let's say I want to print bikes. As you can see, it sort of reversed that particular list of items directly. So it modifies the current list or the existing list which we passed on and applied that reverse function and sort of reverse it from from all the way from back to beginning. You can just do the same also can be achieved using slicing, but please be mindful that slicing does not modify um, the original array. It is just going to give you a mechanism to play with it. Yeah, so that's the difference between reverse and slicing with reverse mechanism by giving a -1. Yeah. Now let's move on to the final part, which is like sorting that particular list. So one thing that you have to be mindful when it comes to sorting is the ASCII characters. So what I imply by that is like when it comes to Python interpreting a capital A character or a small a character, it treats them as ASCII characters, and then you can see that it has capital A has 65 as a number and small a has got 97 as a number. So if you're trying to sort a list with capital A and small a, capital A is going to come at the top, or capital letters would come at the top compared to small, lowercase letters. So that's something that you would need to be mindful of. So let's say that I want to create a list called uh, bikes using, let's say, list of um, Harley. Let me just give that alone, and then let me print bikes. Now if I do bikes dot sort, and then let me print bikes again. So as I do that, um, because H is a capital letter, this is what I was talking about. It comes above that lowercase letters. That's why you see capital H coming at the top, but the lowercase letters all got converted into, in the sorting order. So the A followed by E, L, or Y. So if I give H as a small letter, then you can see that H went back in its right place. So this is what I was talking about when it comes to sort. So sort, you have to be mindful about, especially the ASCII characters and other things. Now, sort modifies the current or existing list. That's why you see that when I printed that particular existing list, it sort of modified it. Now, if I say, if I use the sorted function is not going to return anything as such, but rather it just it does not modify the it does return the sorted list, but uh, it sort of modifies it does not modify the original list. So what I imply by that is like let's say I define bikes with list of Harvey, and then I print bikes here before and after. Okay. Now, as you can see, this is the first one is the actual one, which got separated with this, and then this is a sorted list that you have, and then with the normal original list, if I print, it didn't sort it. So that's the difference between sorted and sort. So sorted returns a list uh, with uh, with the sorted elements, whereas sort actually modifies that original list without returning anything. So that's the difference between sort and sorted. So basically, these are the manipulations or operations that we can do in order to perform slicing, or it's not a slicing, like different operations on a list. Now, if I go to loops, functions, and common errors that we do have on that. Let's say that, for example, I have a list of numbers, and that's like 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. I could have used a list comprehension to create this simple list, but just for you guys, I can, I'm just showing you in the basic format. Now, I can simply say for number in numbers, please do make sure that indentation matters. So if I print the number, then it's sort of for anything that you specify here in the first object, it's going to treat that as an item in that particular list, and therefore you get access to that item within that particular loop. So you can do manipulations as well on that particular item. So what I imply by that is like if I just specify as 10, it gets incremented with 10, but it does not modify the existing list, just prints, like we can do manipulations on that particular loop. Now for loop can also be used with a range function as well. So for let's say number in list of range of, let's say I was doing this, right? So 10 to, let's say I want to do till 51 in the steps of 10. Then if I print number, you would see the same thing happening. So the range function also you can manipulate within a for loop as shown here. Now you can also use list slicing as well in if it is a predefined list as you have here. So for example, for number in numbers, and I want to start with only from, let's say, 2 onwards, then if I print that particular number, it only starts from 0, 1, and which is 30. So that 2, 3, and 4 is what it's going to print. So that's what you see here. Now, if I want to use a while loop on it, then it is also quite it's also quite possible. For example, because I have number as an existing list, so what I can do is like use a while loop, and then let me just go it under until the end of that particular list. So that's what I'm so if, for example, I have numbers here, right? Yeah, and then I can print I is nothing but a number, I would say. Okay, I need to specify a number. So let's say number is equal to, or I would say rather, I is equal to 0. And then let me use I here. And then I'll say after printing, let me do I plus equal to 1. Yeah, just to exit that particular loop. So as you can see here, it sort of increments it with 0, 1, and 2. Now, not only did I print I, but I can also do something called as numbers of I with that particular list reference. And it's gonna print me with, oh, int is not, int object is not subscriptable. Okay, I made a typo there. It was supposed to be numbers, but I gave it numbers. That's why you saw that error. But yeah, it's good to have errors when you're coding so you can figure that out and then, sort of address that particular issue. So now that's it about it. Now I could also use a list comprehension as well. So let's say print. So I can do that same thing here. Just, I'll copy that and then I'll specify that for you guys. It's quite convenient considering that this is a long video. So you can simply use the numbers, which is an existing predefined list, and simply print that particular list out of it as well. So that's one way of you printing that particular list. Now, going back here, so we used how we can use comprehension as well to print that particular list. Now, what you can also do is do some operations on that particular, numbers. So if you see that here, basically we have this number. So if I want to identify the minimum of numbers, it's going to give me 10 because that's the lowest number that's there. And if I do maximum of numbers, it's going to give me 50. And I can do sum of those numbers as well, and it's going to add everything and then give me that value. So this is quite convenient, especially when you have, a set of numbers that you want to, or list of items which are numeric, and then you want to do some operation on it. Then it's quite convenient on that. So now these are some of the common errors. So let me just copy that for reference. So I have three different form of errors, which is like index out of range, value error, and indentation errors. So what I imply by that is like, let's say we have what length of numbers as 5. Now, you know that index starts from 0. So if I try to refer something as print numbers of 5 by default, it's going to throw me index out of range. So basically, if you're trying to access anything that is outside the index range, it's going to throw you an index error. Now, you can also see that you may also experience value error that would be pretty much on the remove function. Let's say I wanna remove numbers dot remove, and then I'm passing a value, right? Let's say I wanna remove 100, and then as soon as I execute that, you are thrown with a value error, or thrown with a value error because that value is not in the list. So basically, we can use try blocks or exception blocks to identify that error and then handle that appropriately. The next one is which one? Just for my reference, indentation errors. So that is basically from, let's say, the for loop, right? So this is what, let me talk about this. So let me copy this for reference and then let me paste that here. Now, if I have to print the original number and the actual number plus 10, then I could simply do that. And as you can see, 20 got is a summed up number, but 10 is the actual number. And then I can also do something with formatted statements. So let's do this. Let me do that. So just to differentiate, uh, increased by 10, and then let me do something like, you know, actual number, and then I'll give that number. Now, as soon as I execute that, you can see that that value got sort of presented and done properly. So now imagine instead of that, I create something called as total. Yeah, just to give the index. Now, if I give total is equal to here, and then let's say I want to print that total here, and then I want to increment that total by plus equal to 1. Now, if for whatever reason I want to print the total, let's say I don't want to include that print statement here. So let me just comment that block here. And then I print the total here. So you see that 5 getting printed here, right? Because it finished that for loop. So for whatever the block of statements that are within that particular for loop is sort of getting executed here. But if for whatever reason I do that indentation and accidentally put that here, then as you can see, it sort of prints within that particular for loop itself. So indentation error is one of the errors that we would encounter usually when you are working with lists. So please be mindful of that on where you would place your block of statements, if whether or not it is in the appropriate block, and so on. So these are basically the different sort of operations that you can perform on lists in Python. I hope you guys like the video. So give a thumbs up if you like the video, and then please do share and subscribe. Yeah, thank you.